What's going on, everybody? It's the Variety Film Brothers. I'm Andrew.
I'm Thomas.
And today we're going to be talking about Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Alright, we just finished the movie. I've seen this one probably 20 plus times. You've seen it what?
Probably like 8, 9 times.
So what did you think of it after watching it just now?
I thought it was pretty good. Like, the last time I watched it, it was like really long, and I thought of it as really boring and not really a lot of stuff happening. But then like the last 30 minutes was really good.
I think this movie is really good at having like a deceptively good ending.
Yeah.
Because the last 30 minutes of it, it's just like dialed up to 11, but before that it keeps it at a cool 3 for the most part.
A cool 3.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about the storyline though? And like,
well, that's something we talked a lot about, was like that this one doesn't really play a huge part in the story. It definitely like sets things in motion for later movies, but like I was telling you earlier, there's literally a viewing order, the Machete Order, where this movie is just straight up cut from the viewing, and I don't think you'd really miss a whole lot from that. I think if you're like showing someone Star Wars for the first time, I wouldn't start out with Episode 1. I think this movie is one of the main reasons why most people are fans of watching it in release order. Like, if they're going to do a Star Wars marathon, they're not going to start with Episode 1, they're going to start with Episode 4. And I think I get that, because, like, I love this movie, I really do, but it is kind of a momentum killer. Like, I would skip the sequels, though, before I skip this. Like, you know...
I think anyone would skip the sequels. Like...
You would think, but there's a lot of people who actually have this as their lowest Star Wars movie on their list.
Really?
Like, they have it at the very bottom.
Dude, Duel of the Fates, the fight was so much better.
Duel
than
of
all
the Fates
three of
alone
the movies of the sequels.
Makes this movie better than any one of the sequels. Did you know the working title for Episode 9 was Duel of the Fates?
What?
Yeah.
It was?
They had a director, his name was Colin Trevorrow, and he wrote a script for Episode 9 called The Duel of the Fates, and Kathleen, like, threw it out.
And imagine that movie didn't have Duel of the Fates music in it.
And I'm pretty sure they used Duel of the Fates in a trailer for Rise of Skywalker.
I mean, I'm glad they didn't put that in there, because there was no choreography that actually would have made
No,
that
there is
song
no
better.
there is no moment in that movie that would have warranted the use of Duel of the Fates at all.
Oh.
It would have been like any shot from the Rise of Skywalker would be severely much too underwhelming for Duel of the Fates. There'd be a drastic disconnect. Let's try not to bash the sequels too much for today. We'll get to the sequels later on. We'll get there.
Yeah.
But today we're focusing strictly on the Phantom Menace, or we're going to try to. But honestly, I think in comparison to the later movies, there's just not as much to talk about here. Literally, as we were watching the movie, like we were engaged in discussion throughout the whole movie, but we were talking about things that happened later on. And I guess that's a good thing, because, you know, it's an engaging enough story, I suppose. But I think this one, like we said earlier, it just feels kind of disconnected from, like, 2 and 3, because, you know, you've got Qui-Gon Jinn as the closest thing to your main character, and after Episode 1, Qui-Gon Jinn really just becomes an afterthought.
Yeah.
Only mentioned a few times, and, you know, we just now saw him back for the first time in live action in Obi-Wan Kenobi for a drastically
He didn't really do a whole
underutilized cameo. So, not a lot of Qui-Gon Jinn after that. So,
kind of sad.
They definitely had a really good idea for a character in Qui-Gon Jinn. He's like, you know, Darth Revan, but leaning more to the light side and the dark side. I think we had that conversation before. And they just don't really do a lot of interesting things with him. I like that he doesn't really like the ways of the Council, because, as we've discussed while we were watching the movie, it's a very good movie to talk during. You can kind of just look at it, but it's a lot easier to get through if you're talking. Yeah. But the Jedi Council were not the best of people. They're not the best group, and I think Qui-Gon knew that, but I don't see him as being the type to really call them out on it.
Mm-hmm.
And it shows the difference between him and Obi-Wan too, because Obi-Wan has that scene where they're outside. I think we were talking over it, so I don't blame you if you missed it. But Obi-Wan's like, if you weren't so different, you could be a part of the council. But Qui-Gon is, that's not what he wants really. He just wants the will of the Force, as he said. So, and the guy who plays Shang-Chi, Simu Liu, he said in an interview that Qui-Gon Jinn is his favorite Jedi.
Really?
So I think that's really cool, and I think that also goes to show that Qui-Gon has had an effect on the franchise, despite being in such a small part of it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a plus of this movie. Everything concerning Qui-Gon Jinn, I think, is done pretty well.
Yeah.
I would have liked to see more, but because he doesn't really feel exactly like the main character of it.
Not really.
Like, there's just a group of good guys and a group of bad guys.
Mm-hmm.
And there's not, like, a defined one for this movie. Like, I feel like in Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, the main character is clearly Anakin.
Yeah.
It's Anakin's story with Obi-Wan as a close second,
Mm-hmm.
and Padme, like, somewhere around third.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, I guess while we're talking about Padme, how do you feel about the beginning of Anakin and Padme's relationship in this movie? Because that's one of the big criticisms of this film.
It was okay. Like, I didn't really feel anything.
Yeah,
about it.
exactly. Because there's 5 years of difference between them, which
Mhm.
really is not that bad.
But, like,
the problem is, like,
Anakin looking, like, really young, and then
Right.
Padme looking, like, maybe 16, 17, it kind of...
like, I'm pretty sure he's supposed to be 9 and she's 14.
Mm.
But that's, I don't know, and like
It's kind of weird.
it's just, like, I don't want to say this movie would benefit just by making Anakin older, but it
Mhm.
definitely would have made that aspect of the movie better.
Mm-hmm. Also, it was kind of funny how Anakin said, "Are you an angel? You're so pretty." And it's just like, wow.
See, I feel so bad for Jake Lloyd. That's the kid who played Anakin. He didn't run up to George one day and was just like, "Hey, what if I thought Padme was an angel? Wouldn't that be really funny, George?"
And she was really hot.
I think people think, like, the whole sand thing was Hayden Christensen's idea, too. Because, like, people exclusively blamed him for the sand monologue. And it's like, do you really think he went up to George and was like, "Hey, so I've really got sand on my mind today. Do you mind if I just let that out?" It's...
Sure.
Like, obviously we wouldn't have Star Wars without George Lucas.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been clearly documented that he wanted help with the prequels. He didn't really want to direct the prequels. He didn't really want to write the prequels, I don't think. I know about he didn't want to direct them for sure. He went out to other people
Mm-hmm.
and tried to ask them to direct. And they were just like, "No, man, Star Wars is your thing. I'm not gonna, it's you. I would just mess it up." So I think I think he had too many jobs with the prequels, honestly. I think he didn't really get to do any of them perfectly. As much as I love the prequels,
Mm-hmm.
I think he had to focus on so many different things. He didn't get to do any one of them perfectly. Really, like we said, we can't blame the people for anything they had to say in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, as far as casting goes, I think this movie has good actors in it.
Yeah, I just didn't like the no emotion in the Queen.
Mm-hmm.
That was,
That was something that was oddly consistent, as we said. Both of the queens speak in a very monotone sort of way. And I think what it is, like we said, they're supposed to be like 14 years old.
Mm-hmm.
What I think it is I honestly think it's just Natalie Portman trying to sound older. Trying to sound more like...
serious.
Yeah, like, trying to, like, demand more screen presence. And I think, by making her voice a little bit deeper and just sounding really stern, she was hoping that she could do that. But I would rather her sound more her age.
And more, like, energetic.
Right, exactly, because 14-year-olds are, like, off the walls freaking crazy.
What did you think about the weapons they used for I don't know what Jar Jar's kind is.
Oh,
actually
the
called.
Gungans.
Yeah.
They
How do you
didn't.
feel about them?
Really, that whole scene is not great. The battle between the Gungans and the droids.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably my least favorite battle. Like ground battles are actually my favorite part of Star Wars,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll get more into that with Episode 2 at the very end with the Battle of Geonosis. But I think this is actually the worst live action ground battle in the original Star Wars saga because one, you have the bad CG wallpapers,
Grass.
but it looks like cotton more so, and like you said about the Gungans spheres of energy.
Yeah.
But it's not really energy though, because it's like some kind of solid matter. Like we don't see how those are made or anything,
Mm-hmm.
and I think they really wanted this like elemental feel for the Gungans. Like they really wanted them to feel obviously like the opposite of the droids. You know, they don't rely on technology. They have a really close relationship like to the planet,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's supposed to be some sort of energy combined with some physical material, but it never really explains what that is. I'm sure it's in some comic. I know, like, if we get somebody saying like what comic or what book it explains those being made in, I really like. If you enjoy the expanded content, that's great. That's fine. But you can't. I don't like all this explaining things that are crucial to explain in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Even a smaller detail like this, because that was really the only chance they had against the droids was those spear things. I mean, it didn't really help them, but it's better than the spears.
Yeah, because then they only have the spears
Mhm.
and like that's pretty much it, right? Just the
It
spears.
was just
and
the spears
things.
and the energy shields, which I'm assuming are like the ones like they would hold like a regular shield, but it had like the force field stuff in it.
I didn't like those.
And if it's supposed to be the same thing that the outer shields are made of, then battle droids can just reach through them anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have been fine with a battle droid reaching through a shield and choking the shit out of a Gungan.
Or like
That would have made the movie better for me.
like a battle droid went through, but then he like snapped his arm and like ripped it out, and then he just bashed
Something.
or something like that.
Something needlessly violent would have made that scene a lot better.
Yeah.
So another scene that is very popular in this movie is the pod race scene, obviously. A lot of people have really mixed feelings about that. And I think I'm also somewhere in the middle on that scene. I love how, George has said he tried to make every single one of his Star Wars movies different.
Yeah.
And incorporate different aspects, in each one. And I think a race is actually a really good idea. Some of the fastest, most intense movie scenes are races. Obviously. It's just, it goes with the sport. But I think it's just too long for one. It felt like 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it's supposed to be one of the most engaging scenes of the movie. And I think if it would have just been paced better, I would have been more into it.
Mm-hmm. And also, we never see someone crash into another pod. Like you never.
Well, I think you see people crashing into pods.
Do we?
But it's not like most of it's just like bumping up against each other a little bit. I don't think there's any hardcore just ramming somebody. But as we repeatedly said while we were watching it, if we would have just gotten one Jawa get mowed over with a pod racer, this would be my favorite Star Wars movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like if we just saw one get hit and roll up and fly off into the distance, this would be my number one Star Wars movie.
Did you say the Jawa would say something while it's being
rolled
off?
It's the thing they scream. It's like that little Wutini thing. That sounds like a pasta.
Wutini? Like a fancy Italian pasta.
Mm-hmm. Well, they're all Italian, right? I guess. I don't know. If there was some good Jawa carnage in this movie, it would be my number one for sure. Would never even rewatch the originals. I would just replay the Jawas getting mowed over.
Oh, that's kind of concerning. No.
Well, they shouldn't be so much fun to mass murder in The Force Unleashed.
That is true.
We talked about that.
That's true. Didn't you say about the one dude who had problems with his pod in the first one? instead of
Yeah,
being exploded.
They tried to interject a lot of humor in that scene, which I think is a good idea. I think humor is a really good basic way to keep an audience interested in something.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of the examples of comedy that this movie tries to pull off are just not very good.
They're just bad.
You see, and like the thing, like like Jar Jar steps in poop, and one of the things like farts on him.
Yeah.
And it's, like this stuff doesn't ruin the movie for me. Like some people are all like, oh, there was a fart in a Star Wars movie. I could never watch Star Wars again. And I understand that's really stupid.
Mm-hmm.
But like, for me, it's just after the moment has passed, the moment has passed.
Mm-hmm.
The fart is not an integral part of the plot. So I don't have to think about it again.
No,
I can
it
just,
is, Andrew.
I can
it
just
is. Think about it. It is. Here's my feelings about Jar Jar. Right, I think it's fine to put him in a movie, but I just think it would have been better if he was out of the movie.
See, something I think we talked about is like, I don't know how the characters in the movie feel about Jar Jar.
Mm-hmm.
Like, obviously, we hate Jar Jar. We all hate Jar Jar. I mean, most people do. If you like him, that's fine. I just assume you don't. But, I think it would have been really funny if the characters in the movie also did not really like him. I mean, they clearly seem uninterested when he speaks.
Qui-Gon doesn't like him.
Qui-Gon probably doesn't like him. But, like, I guess his people don't really like him. But I mean, if one person would have just called out how annoying he is, it would have all been worth it. Because, like we said, I think it would have been really funny if it was just Jar Jar that spoke like that for some reason, and not even, like, the rest of his kind talked like that. And they're just like, Jar Jar, what the hell's wrong with you? This is why we banished you.
Your mother and father speak the exact same as us. Why are you speaking like this?
Where'd you pick up this evil dialect? But yeah, and in the later two movies, obviously Jar Jar is still in it, but he's been drastically reduced. And I think that was a good way to go. I don't know if they should have, like, really killed off Jar Jar. I don't think, because obviously a lot of people want that. But I don't know if that would have actually really helped anything. I think it'd be really weird to, like, have this character who's just comedically, just, like, unreasonably comedic,
mm-hmm.
and then just, like, he gets shot in the head or something. Like, that, I don't think that would really feel right.
I also don't like it how in the first episode he was, like mostly in all of the scenes, like, 8 out of 10 times he was
mm-hmm.
in all of the scenes, and I think that's kind of more scenes that he really should have been in.
See, like, he doesn't even really
do
anything important in this movie.
Just
I mean,
around.
Not really. I mean, like, I feel like if you wanted to write Jar Jar out of this movie, you could do it pretty easily, and maybe they should have. But I mean, obviously, we've been over that 1,000 times.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you think? I guess just a basic question.
Okay.
Do you think this is a good movie?
I think it's a good movie.
Yeah,
I think it's a good movie.
I think I agree with you that it's a good enough movie.
Yeah.
I don't think like this movie has, I think, a 55 on Rotten Tomatoes.
It's kind of low.
Do you think that's about right?
I would give it like a 71
really?
Or 73.
I'd give it like a solid like 65. I think, because like, see, it's weird because I think like the first 2/3 of the movie are just, I think they have a good story to tell. I think there are good elements, of things in there. But then the last third, it's just, it's so awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'll say every day of the week that Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon versus Darth Maul is the best live action lightsaber duel. I just think it's the best, and that's one thing this movie does get right, is I think the scenery, even if it's not executed well, I think it's always visually interesting.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell that there were probably like at least 10 times where we said that you can tell they put a lot of care into that specific thing. Mm-hmm. They really took the time to do that specific thing, whether it was just a small detail or extra work on the architecture, and you definitely don't feel that in the sequels. And really, I don't even think some of the environments are as good in the other prequels.
They're okay. I like the Darth Maul versus Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon because there was two different settings in the fight. Right, there was like two different settings.
Really, I guess three, because they start out in the hangar bay, and then they duel out into the, like, where all the platforms are, and then they go into that room.
Yeah,
so really three in a way.
It's three, and I think, in my opinion, I think the Darth Maul fight is better than the Episode 3 one because of the music and the choreography itself. I think it's a little bit better, just a little bit.
I agree. The settings are also used more in this fight. Like, the environment is used more.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously in Episode 3, Anakin being burned is a, a big use of the environment, but it's kind of after the fight. So I wouldn't really include that. But, like, in this one, you've got, like, all the platforms. You got people being knocked onto different levels of the platforms, and they've got to, like, get back to where the fight is. And then you've got the doors on the, or I guess doors, that's really the best way. I don't know how to explain it. The force field doors. That creates a lot of tension with Obi-Wan being stuck behind it. So it's weird. Like, this movie and the sequels, they have, like, the exact opposite problems.
Yeah.
Because I think in the sequels, everyone seems really enthusiastic, but, like, there's just not a whole lot of tension anywhere. Whereas in this movie, sure, everyone speaks on a really monotone level that kind of makes you want to go to sleep. But, like, when they're trying to put in tension, I think it works. Because they establish, stakes pretty well. And, like, you actually feel something when Obi-Wan is stuck behind the door.
Yeah.
And he has to watch Qui-Gon die. You feel the tension of, like, what's going to happen.
Also really mad how Obi-Wan got mad. Like, you could see Obi-Wan gets mad.
I've always thought that, like, it'd be really interesting if in the prequels we had this sort of small arc for Obi-Wan where he, like, almost goes down into the dark side after that, because, like, he's very angry there. And I think some of that, and in the Clone Wars as well, he still has some anger for Maul. And they kind of work through that. Thomas hasn't seen most of the Clone Wars yet, so we thought about doing some reaction videos for that, if you guys would like to see that. I've seen every episode at least 2 times, but he does know that Darth Maul returns. That's not going to be a big, like, revelation if we ever get to that. But, do you think...
Like 2 episodes?
Like 2 episodes. But do you think Darth Maul not dying in this movie, like, cheapens it in any sort of way? Because I think that's how some fans felt back in the day.
I don't know. Like, it's iffy on both. I think that it's okay if he lived, but I just wish he was more agile than he was in that fight than he's like now.
Yeah.
Even though he's cut in half and has robot legs.
See, I think the reason I'm fine with it is because even though it's really unlikely that he would survive that, I think Darth Maul just really doesn't have a story in Episode 1. Like,
he's just an apprentice.
Like, exactly, like he doesn't have an arc. He doesn't have a story. You really know nothing about him from watching this movie. So, like, if he would have had a really good arc that ended with him being killed, and it was, like, really, like, it was a really fitting end for him, I think then I would have been like, whoa, I think we should have really kept him dead. But, like, he has, 3 lines in this movie, and we really just don't know anything about him. So I think continuing his story actually kind of makes this movie better in a way. Because, like, if you want to start watching the Clone Wars, like, and you see Darth Maul in there, but you haven't watched this movie, I don't think you really would understand why he's significant. Like, it's not really going to be a big deal. But,
yeah, the odds are kind of against Maul whenever he got chopped in half and
fell
for
sure.
A bunch of feet down.
I mean, that's kind of what he gets, though, for just staring at Obi-Wan as he does a front flip over him.
I think that scene could have been better if if Maul swung and then Obi-Wan blocked it, or he swung and missed and then he got chopped.
All they had to do is just put an effort swing in there. It wouldn't even have to, like, look very good. I just want to see something that he tried.
Yeah.
Like,
instead of just...
I don't think he'd be so amazed, because I'm sure he's, like, You know, he's doing flips all the time. It's not like
Yeah.
he's never seen a flip before.
Didn't he do like 2 flips?
He did at least 2 flips in this fight. So, what do you think would have been some ways you would improve this movie?
Probably have Jar Jar out of it.
You take out Jar Jar, you really don't even need to have his whole people be in it.
That is true.
Like, they didn't even need to do the bait and switch with the Queen. They didn't.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't, because it really doesn't change much of the context of the movie at all.
Like, she doesn't die, so like, why
Right.
even switch them? But maybe Padme just wants to do stuff
Maybe.
instead of just sitting in a chair and talking about how boring politics are.
I think it was actually a really good idea because, as we talked about earlier, war almost always has its roots in politics.
Mm-hmm.
And there is even a whole genre of movies called political thrillers. And so I think it was actually a really good idea. Like, I don't think, like, some people, especially back in 1999 when this movie came out, would have told you that just having a Senate chamber room was a bad idea. But I think the politics is actually a really good idea in this, and it makes the scale feel bigger. You know, because we have all these seats from people who are from different planets,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, this room matters. This room is how the galaxy functions. But the problem is, in these scenes, for one, they don't really look the best. I think it's designed well, but it's almost all done in CG, I'm pretty sure, and it just doesn't really hold up too well.
Mm-hmm.
But the main problem is, I don't think it's really easy to understand what's going on and how what they're saying affects the citizens directly of the planets that they represent, mainly in this movie being Naboo. You know, because, you know, we're told over and over that these people are starving,
Mm-hmm.
and they're dying and they're being held captive or whatever. But
we don't never see anything.
we don't actually see that. So it's really hard to sort of establish like a time frame. Like, we don't know how much more of them are left.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, we don't see. You know, we actually talked about a really good idea for a scene to see some Darth Maul. Would have been to keep Maul on Naboo for a little bit. I guess really he goes back to Naboo anyway at the very end for the duel. But at some point have Darth Maul be the one torturing the citizens, and that way we get one, more Darth Maul, and two, actually seeing the citizens like being in danger, because it's supposed to be like a what's it called, the things that the sand go through.
The sand goes through.
The you know, like you flip it over, hourglass.
Yeah, that.
It's like the citizens' lives are supposed to be like the hourglass.
I thought you meant a large scale
no.
of just sand being cut through something.
No,
I was
well-
like, what is that?
Man, who would have thought we'd already be talking about sand in episode 1? Obviously, we're getting to it next time with episode 2.
Yeah.
But yeah, just more. If I were to change anything about this movie, it would be more scenes with Darth Maul, more scenes with Palpatine, more. I think more scenes between Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon would have been good. Really establish the relationship, because we have like a couple nice scenes where they just talk, but I really don't think we get a whole lot of the history between them.
Because whenever the part where Qui-Gon gets stabbed, it shows that Obi-Wan was really emotional whenever he died.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But
Like, we get that it's a big deal that he's
Yeah.
dead. Like, we get why that's important for the narrative.
mhm.
But
It just seems that like Qui-Gon is just like, or like Obi-Wan is just his apprentice. And there's
like
not
it-
really much
mhm.
like relationship between them. But that's fine.
it's good enough. Like we
Yeah.
said, this movie is good enough.
Good enough.
Like, I know we've been sitting here tearing this movie apart, and but we're just about out of time, so I want to leave on some positive notes. We found a lot to appreciate in this movie. A lot of the designs of the ships look great. The fact that we just got a ground battle at all, I think, is good,
Mhm.
because the later Star Wars movies really don't give us much of that.
Can I say two things real quick?
Yes.
One of them was I like most of the CGI and the
Mhm.
explosions. I thought those were pretty cool. And then I wish Palpatine did more. I wish we
Yes.
did more of his point of view.
For sure.
And I wanted to see, like, since Palpatine got his chance as being Supreme Chancellor, I wanted to see him kill the original Chancellor,
See,
or do something to threaten him.
Oh yeah, I think it would have been a much more intimidating dynamic in the courtroom or in the Senate chamber. Obviously, that'd be less realistic, but I mean, Star Wars is extremely violent, so I mean, I think you could have chancellors being threatened left and right, and that would feel pretty in line for Star Wars.
And also, about whenever Palpatine was going to the clone place to actually go and
that would have been an excellent thread into Episode 2.
Yeah,
because I think I've said 10 times how disconnected this one feels from 2. There's just too big of a jump. I think Palpatine, going to Kamino and getting the clone army started, would have been such a good way to branch into Episode 2. And I think it would have gotten a lot more people hyped for the next Episode 2. Because a lot of people walked out of this one pretty disappointed. And obviously the mention of clones, they talked about the Clone Wars in Episode 4, in A New Hope. They mentioned the Clone Wars. And so that's why the introduction of the clones and Attack of the Clones was such a big deal and had a lot of people excited, even though most people ended up not liking that movie too. But, like I said, this movie ended really well with the fight, but I think leaving that seed into the next movie would have had people feeling a little bit more satisfied, but also wanting more, which you should definitely want out of the first movie of your trilogy.
Because if you don't hook on your audience in the first film, it's most likely going to be disappointing for the rest of the movies starting off. Because if you don't get most of the people's likes and they're good attention towards that, I guess they're going to be the Star Wars franchise is probably going to be garbage, or it's going to be
a lot
not
of people,
as good.
A lot of people thought the prequels just ruined Star Wars because they walked out of Phantom Menace unhappy. We went over the time that I wanted to do this in. So we're each going to say one positive thing about this movie, because overall I do think this was a good movie, and I want this video to end with some good vibes. So what was a good thing about the movie that we haven't talked about so far?
So far I haven't talked about so far. That can be tough.
Because we could both talk about the lightsaber duel all day. So I don't want to just say, Duel of the Fates was good again.
Yeah. I like most of the modeling they did. Most of the shots were
that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Crap. Now I have to think of something.
What's yours?
No, you explain for a little bit while I think. I guess there's not that much I like about it.
Yeah, some of the models they used were really good, and some of the shots was really good, and I really liked that about the film. And that's pretty much it.
The ships looked good, the planets looked good, just not the grass.
Not the poorly textured.
Or the Gungans.
What's yours?
Well, I was gonna say that. I also can't say the soundtrack because we've talked about Duel of the Fates all the time. What's something I like about this movie that we haven't mentioned yet? I'm trying to be positive, and I'm just killing the mood. I'm trying to think of something positive that's not a backhanded compliment to the sequels.
This is fun. I like taking Andrew's ideas. It's funny. I think we talked about mostly everything.
We talked about pretty much everything, so I'm trying to...
one small detail you can mention.
It's gotta be something. It's got to be something. Okay, here's one. I like how many fans it brought in to the Star Wars fandom. Because this was the first Star Wars movie in 16 years at that point. So this movie, I've seen countless comments online. This was the first Star Wars movie I saw when I was a kid, and this is why I love Star Wars. It's The Phantom Menace. I was born a year after The Phantom Menace. So when I was, my introduction to Star Wars was kind of just an odd mix of the originals and prequels. I kind of got to them all at around the same time. But this movie was the reason a lot of people were introduced into Star Wars. So what I like about this movie, one of the things anyway, is that it kept the franchise alive, kept the brand alive, and like I said, I think it's a fine enough movie, so I think it did its job.
I think it's... Yeah.
All right. I still don't like how long it took me to think of that.
It
But,
took you like 2 minutes to think
yeah.
about that.
yeah, if you take my answer for the next one, I don't know what I'm gonna do.
You're just gonna
Because
beat the crap out of
because
me.
I
You're gonna
can't-
shove me over
I can't hide behind that answer again. Alright, so like I've said like 3 times, we've already went over our time. So this was good though. This was a good episode. We'll have episode 2's discussion out hopefully within the next few days. Alright, well I think this was a good first episode. Very fitting that episode 1 would be our first episode of discussion. Alright, so we'll see you guys in the next one.
See you.